everybody. It's good to see all of you today back in Zoom. I mean, with our regular classes in Teams. Thursdays, we still want to make something special. And that something special is the Demo Thursday. For people who are not familiar with that, and again, I say that because this recording will be part of the ongoing LSLP in session series of webinars that we host in our YouTube channel. So people watching this, once it's posted, you're welcome to check this video and all the other amazing webinars that we are featuring in this playlist, this collection. So a little bit of context. The Demo Thursday is always a chance in the methods and approaches to the teaching of languages class to learn something more practical, but just because it's practical, it doesn't mean it's not based on research. So it's like a research-based application of particular techniques and methodologies that have all this theory behind it, and how we can take that into class, and how young teachers can use this as part of their repertoire, as part of their teaching toolkit, so to speak. For this semester, since we are in the middle of the pandemic and we're going fully virtual in our course, we're gonna do something very special with the demos. And we are inviting school teachers from the city with experiences doing research, specifically research on literacy. And they're gonna come to the class and they're gonna share with us their own work and their own experiences developing research and implementing that research into classroom activities and into the language curriculum in public schools and in private schools and at the university level. So today we have a very special guest, a very, very, very talented school teacher, Mónica López-Ladino. She just, a couple of years ago, she finished her master's in learning and teaching processes in second languages at UPB. She also has a specialization in language teaching, and she has a bachelor's in English Spanish education. She's now a public school teacher here in Medellín, and she does research on issues related to multimodality, storytelling, and the implementation of literacies in language classrooms. Monica, she's already co-authored a few book chapters and presentations for national and international conferences. I think she also has an ARA presentation and LRA presentations in her already impressive CV. And this will be the last you're gonna hear from me today. I may return at the end to say thank you very much for joining us. But I think if we invited an incredible school teacher such as Monica, I think that's the person you should be listening to this afternoon. So I'm just going to silence my microphone and leave you in the very competent hands of our dear fellow teacher, Monica.
Thank you, Dr. Perry. So good evening to all. It's a really pleasure to be here with you during this Demo Thursday, and I'm gonna share with you two things that it will be really nice that you can use maybe in your teaching practice, maybe in the future, or maybe some of you are already teaching. So for today, I brought to you two things. Dr. Berry will help me passing the slide, please. And I like to start my classes, and I'm gonna do the same thing here with an agenda. It's really important to tell others what are we going to do, what are maybe the possible expectations for this section. So we're gonna start talking about a little bit of the conceptual background of what I'm going to share with you, because it's really important that you understand where the concepts or the theory that underpins what I'm going to share with you. The next thing is going to be multimodal storytelling, that I love it. It was part of my research for the master. And I'm going to share also with you something that I'm working with my students nowadays, and it's something that is about stimulating self-confidence for English learning. And finally, the idea is that we have a discussion with all the students that we have here. I see that we are at least like 14 students plus those two teachers. So, okay, we are around 14 students. And I like that you are really involved in this activity. I really need your participation. I really need that you take your notebook, write some questions, ideas, because the idea is that we're gonna do it really like in the real way, maybe how the class it will be, right? So we're gonna start talking about the conceptual background, right? And for the conceptual background, I see that there is no here like yeah, they appear. There you go. We are going to talk about two main concepts. There is literacy and multimodality. Maybe some of them are new for you. Maybe you have heard about those concepts before. And I would like to share with you like a very easy or introductory idea of what are those. So when we say literacy, we used to think about reading and writing processes. But the traditional notion says that those concepts or those processes, reading and writing, could be separated. But nowadays, we are understanding literacy in a broadened way. And we have moved from those ideas or traditional notions to explore reading and writing in a much broader sense. And the idea is that we understand that literacy today cannot ignore that reading and writing are complementary and inseparable processes. This is according to the also Mora, right? When he wrote a micro paper about literacy, you know, we are part of the LSLP, and we have some micro papers that help us to illustrate or to understand in a really easy way to get the meaning of those concepts. So at this moment, we understand that literacy is something where when we understand that reading and writing are complementary and inseparable process. So when we are talking about reading, we are not just decoding the alphabet symbols. That's something that we need to change our mind. So that's why we do not see like the reading comprehension in the way that we used to see it. We are trying to go broader in that idea. So we're going to see that later. And also we have other concept that is really important here, and is multimodality. And when we talk about multimodality, we are talking about the integration of a set of modes or resources for sending a message. And those modes can be sounds, color, text, images, right? So until this part, we're talking about two concepts, and then in my research I tried to integrate, and I did a fusion of those concepts, and I create something also that I call multimodal storytelling. And when I say sorry for the sound in the background. So when I say multimodal storytelling, I want that you understand that is like the fusion of storytelling with multimodality, that is to say, to tell a story by using modes. And remember that I said that modes can be sounds, color, text, images, also gestures, pictures, smells. And there are some other resources that we have. For example, in our classroom, we have puppets, we have school supplies, or media resources that can act like a mode, and we can integrate it to tell a story. So that's what we call multimodal storytelling. And that multimodal storytelling thing is what we are going to do today in this section. And I would like that you enjoyed it. But when I see that what I was using multimodal storytelling, I start, oh, sorry about this. I had to tell you that I started using multimodal storytelling with preschool. I started using this activity with preschool, this strategy or with preschool, and they love it. The idea was that they can understand in a very easy way how was the story, well, how was the story about, what was the story about, and also like at the simple comprehension about the place or the setting of the story, also the characters of the story. But get this point. If you're telling them a story, telling to children in a bilingual school, a story that is in English, is not their mother tongue, how do you expect they comprehend details of the story? Maybe they can get the whole message of the story when you work with storytelling, but how you help them to understand those details that are key for understanding many things of the story. So at that moment, I started using multimodal storytelling. But later, I started using multimodal storytelling in high school because I see that sometimes the traditional reading time for high school was, okay, take the books and read them. And they were like, what? We don't understand. And imagine also to go to the high school level, it could be 6th grade, 7th grade, or 11th grade, where they do not have the contact with English in the way that maybe a teacher can give them during the whole class, speaking in English, giving them input. They were used to another way to learn English, where maybe the English teacher was a person that just pronounced some words in English, but they do not have the whole class in English. For them, it was challenging, right? It was a challenge, maybe, how can I say that? It was really demanding for them. So I bring this multimodal storytelling strategy in high school, and let me tell you that is fantastic. I mean, the result in the comprehension of my students, it was like getting a better performance during the English classes and things like that. But also, I realized that I was missing something, and that's something that I cannot miss, and that I am like the kind of teachers that love to take into account this item, and is the emotional component of the students. So click. So here it appears a student's emotional component, like another aspect that happens in the English classes, and you cannot isolate it. You cannot say that when a student goes to an English class, he left outside their emotions. I mean, they are in the class and they are gonna be always paying attention or happy, and they are always motivated. We know that that's not true. We know that when students come to an English classroom, to whatever school or to whatever language center, they bring also their happiness, their anger, they're maybe feeling blue, sometimes they feel depressed, sometimes they are unmotivated, right? And all those emotions also play an important role in the classroom. So I'm gonna show you how my classroom can look sometimes. So sometimes I use literacy, multimodality, and also multimodal storytelling and the student's emotional component. And I play with those 4 concepts in my classroom. But no every single time, because remember that all the theory we had to adapt it to the classroom, to the context. Sometimes, according to your curriculum, according to the class environment, you had to use or dismiss some items. So sometimes my classroom look in this way. Only literacy, multimodality, and students' emotional component, right? So I left multimodal storytelling outside, but I tried to involve students' emotional component with some activities related to multimodality and literacy, right? So until this part, it's important that we understand that when I use those things in my classroom, the idea is that I can help my students. I use those theories. I use it. Yes, this theory is just for helping my student. It's not because it's my personal benefit. I see that their results is going to be part of my personal benefit. Yes, but what I pretend to you is to explain that you use everything according what the contents requires, right? So let's see. I'm gonna start sharing with you one experience. Yeah, I have here like a summarize. I want to avoid this slide, but it's okay already. So according to the time, I think that it was not enough time for explaining those 3 stories. I would like to share with you how to present those stories using multimodal storytelling. And I want to say that this strategy, it can be possible to use it in preschool. And I was going to share with you, for example, Jack and Jill's story, also in primary, and I have an example like it is too noisy. There is a picture book, and also for high school, Gulliver's Travel. And I decided that with you, we are gonna have the real demonstration of how to tell Gulliver's Travels using multimodal storytelling, right? And the second part of this demo is gonna be sharing with you 3 strategies that I use in my classes, trying to stimulate self-confidence in those English language learners. And that's something that I call challenge time. English helps me grow and thinking outside the box. Nice. So let's start with the multimodal storytelling. And for working with this story, I would like your participation. I really require your participation, because that's the way that we use multimodal storytelling. It's just not a teacher sit down maybe in a circle time with her students and say, okay, let's go to read this story. It's not about that. Because we know that sometimes if the teacher starts reading aloud a story, we do not understand. Sometimes that's something that we need to also to understand as teachers. That you read a story with a wonderful English pronunciation doesn't mean that all the students is gonna get the comprehension of that story. And also remember the periods of attention, the span periods. If we took too much time talking about the same thing, we got lost. And it happens to any human, right? And remember that according to the ages, also we have the the periods of time, I mean the time that you can get focus your attention or not. For example, if you're working with a 3, 4, 5 years old kid, you know that the activities maximum they have to last 10, 15 minutes, and immediately you have to change them. So the same thing happens here with multimodal storytelling. If you're telling a story and you know that the story is too long, you need to involve all the participants in the story. But the participants in the story, the participation is completely different to the ones that we have when we are reading aloud. When you're reading aloud, try to remember how it was maybe in your school when you were at school. The normal thing that we have in the imaginary is that the teacher sits down in the middle of the class, all the students are around, and the teacher starts showing the picture book and making gestures and playing with the voice levels, with the voice volumes, right? And you think that your students are understanding what you're saying, but it's a very passive role of the listeners. And the idea here is that we try to get involved. So as I told you, we're gonna have this demo about Gulliver's Travels. I would like to listen to you. Have you ever heard about this story? Have you ever read? I would like that you tell me, what do you know about this story, please? Turn on your phones, your microphones. I would like to listen to you. What do you know about this story? I would like that you tell me if you have heard about this one, if you have read this, or if you know all the details about the story. I would like that you tell me. So I had to start naming students. I can't believe it. Nothing, says Angela. Perfect. I like that nothing because that's the idea. Just to learn.
Teacher.
Somebody maybe have read it?
Teacher, I remember I saw a movie, but I don't know if it's the same story. I think it's the same.
You had an idea, right, about what the story is about. So
yes,
you had in your imaginary, like you are not, maybe you have the confusion if you read it or not, but you think that that's it. Okay,
yes.
Perfect. Something else. Somebody would like to share.
Apparently, a lot of people say there is a movie about it. So those who say there is a movie about that story, can you recall the details from that movie?
Yeah, it was a very bad movie. I didn't like it. I just like the School of Rock for that actor and nothing else. So we know that maybe could be also a movie. That's other important thing that we need to take into account during this multimodal storytelling reading and multimodal storytelling section. Very nice. So some of you maybe have read it, some of you maybe not. Okay, so I need take your notebooks because we are going to start working, right? So hands on our business. Next slide, please. And here, there is some vocabulary related to Gulliver's Travels. I need that all of you, I repeat, all of you, because I really need your participation, you're gonna write or draw or whatever that you want to provide the meaning of all those words that are there. If you don't know the meaning, it's okay. It's okay. If you don't know how to give them the meaning different by writing in Spanish, okay, don't worry, do it. But I would like that you complete the diagram Juliana said that I had never listened it. And Juan Andres, I just know that there's a movie about the story. And the pic looks really familiar, but I don't know the story perfect. Nice, nice. So, as I told you, you're gonna do this diagram in your notebooks and please represent the word with the meaning you know. When I say represent, the meaning is that you can make drawings or you can use a different letter for explaining the meaning of the word. Do whatever that you want that provides meaning to you, right? Not to me, to you. And I'm gonna give you like 2 minutes to work on that. And please, at the end, I would like that you turn on the camera and please show your notebooks or what you get from that activity. That it will be fantastic, right? So let's count the time, 2 minutes. Or if, and later, what I need from you is that some of you represent the meaning of those words, because later the idea is that I'm gonna tell you the story and you're gonna be the ones that represent those words when I'm telling the story, right? So we have chip, shore, rope, stormy night, round, tie up, danger, pool. Okay. So working on your notebooks. Dr. Berry, are you doing too?
Of course I am.
No, perfect. I want to see your representation of stormy night. Remember that you don't need to know the meaning of all the words. It's not necessary. This is going to be a multimodal storytelling, so don't worry if you don't know the meaning of a word, right? Don't worry about it. Nice. So I think that you're ready. Is it done, right? So what if I ask you to show me some of you? Remember that you can turn on your camera, please do it, and show your notebook. What representation of sheep do you do? Someone at this moment who wants to try?
Hello, DDC.
Juli, perfect. I like it. Oh, beautiful sheep. Very nice. I like it. Thank you. What about a shore? Who got the meaning of that one? Who got the representation of a shore? Someone? No one? Juli, I need you later. So you're gonna be taking action later also, right? Who has something about a shore? Who wants to show us? Maybe nobody. Maybe someone with a rope. Someone working on the rope representation.
Okay, I can check. So you can.
Angela?
You can see.
Yes, I can see it. I can see the rope. Perfect. I like your rope. Thank you, Angela. Hey, be there. I'll need you later. Somebody else. Somebody else with maybe the stormy night.
Me.
Look at Dr. Berry there. Stormy night. Perfect. I love it. Judy. Judy. Oh, my. So nice. Symbols, colors. Perfect. And what about someone that show me what is wrong? Or tie up? Who has it? Who has the representation?
I'm not sure, but I think that is like this.
Okay, Juli, go.
I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
Don't worry, Juli, we are watching you. Oh, tie it up. Perfect. I love it. Perfect. And what about danger, pool? We're missing those. Who has those? Danger or pool? Waiting for those artists. Somebody else? We had a row of students here. I would like to see your representations too, because we will need them. So let's see something. Until this time, we have the representation of ship, rope, stormy night, also tie up, and we are missing danger, pool, roam, and shore, right? We're missing the meaning of those words. So let me tell you that your teacher at this moment is not gonna tell you, because the idea is that we're gonna do like a vocabulary, it's so funny. We're gonna make a cooperation with the meaning of the words, because that's part of the multimodal storytelling issue, right? So at this moment, also we have the ones with the drawings, and I need 3 students, 3 volunteers for reading something that I'm gonna show you. I need 3 volunteers. Please raise your hand. No, everybody at the same time. Need 3 students for reading a sentence. So, Camila Correa, student number 1, John, number 2, and Juan Andres, number 3. Perfect, ready. Do not forget the order. Student number 1, student number 2, and number 3, Juan Andres, right? So at this moment, we're gonna start story time. So there we go, next slide. Dr. Berry, please, next. Where we have the reading time, the story time. So this is gonna be the contrast with this picture, with this story time. So I'm gonna tell you the story, and I'm gonna tell you the story in the way that I love it, that is telling the story, storytelling. And the idea is that when you hear the word that you provide the meaning, please immediately show to your partners, to your classmates, the representation. Because remember, nobody, we do not have like the guarantee, yeah, that all of you knows every single word in the vocabulary list that I provided to you. And remember that we have some missing words. And those missing words, maybe I can add them, and I'm going to use a mode to help you to understand that, right? So here we go. Remember, when I say the word, you have to turn the camera and show the drawing, right? One stormy night at sea, a ship was wrecked. So, until that part, you show, perfect. So all the students are watching those representations and understanding what is the beginning of the story. One stormy night at sea, a ship was wrecked. All the passengers on board drowned, except Lemuel Gulliver. Gulliver was an excellent swimmer and swam for many miles before he reached shore. Can you imagine that scene? Gulliver was very tired and he decided to sleep. He would look for food after he had had sufficient rest. Gulliver slept for a whole day. When he woke up, the sun was bearing down upon him. He tried to move, but he could not. His hair, his hands, legs and body were tied up to the ground. Show me the tied it up. Is it there? Who has tied it up? So he was tied up to the ground. Perfect. He saw a little man running all around him. I have the little man. Look at this one. A little man all around him. Some people had got a tiny ladder and was climbing up to the hem. The little man, no bigger than Gulliver's thumbnail, came up to him ears and said, "Student number 1, please read the slide." Next slide, and student number 1. Berry. Next slide, please. Student number 1, what it says, the little man.
You are in the land of Philippines. We are Philippines.
Lilliputians, yeah. Student number 2.
We are talking to you, to our emperor, so please not make any trouble.
Student number 3, go.
You will be shot at.
Gulliver almost laughed at this threat, but nodded. A huge wooden structure with wheels was brought. Gulliver was asleep onto it after much struggle. The wooden structure was pulled through the streets of Lilliput with all the Lilliputians lining up the streets. It was a carnival atmosphere which the Lilliputians seemed to be enjoying themselves, much to the amusement of Gulliver. Finally, they arrived at the emperor's palace. The emperor was there to receive Gulliver, and you're indeed on a stranger's side. If you are to stay here, you will have to be of service of my people here. He pointed to the ground. Gulliver said, okay, well, I agree to any condition, but only if you untie me. So what is the untie? The tie, and we had to do the untie movement. Very good. Gulliver was free. He was provided with food and water. A house was built for him. It was a monumental effort by the Lilliputians, who were allowed to serve Gulliver. Gulliver stayed with the Lilliputians, helping them with many small tasks. It so happened that the neighboring kingdom of the Blues were not in very friendly relationship with the Lilliput. The king of Blues declared war on Lilliput. He took 100 ships to mount an attack. So danger is coming. The Lilliputians ran to Gulliver's for help. The emperor said, "Don't let us down now, Gulliver. We need your help. Gulliver, please, we need your help." And Gulliver walked into the sea. He took long rope. What is the rope? I want to see the rope for this part of the story. Where is the rope? Someone has it. So he took the long rope, tied all the 100 ships together. Where is the ships? Remember, what are the ships? They are tying all the ships together and dragging them in the water. Gulliver pulled the ships the whole day until the army of Blues was seated like this and in no position to fight. The king of Blues came begging for peace. I would like to show you something related to peace, but I do not have something white here. I can show you something white, right? So the king of Blue came begging for peace between the two kingdoms. The emperor agreed. Gulliver was hailed as the hero and lived in Lilliput for many years. So that's the end of the story. Hope you have enjoyed it. And until this part, I really appreciate your participation because you showed the pictures and all those things and the students that read, so on. So can we pass to the next slide, please? And imagine that maybe the teacher do not like to tell the story because it's not part of maybe her personality or his personality, or imagine that maybe that teacher would like to use another mode that maybe is not her voice. Maybe the teacher would like to use something else, something different. So in that case, it's also possible that you go look for a video and also use the video to also contribute with the understanding of the story. So here I have the video, and Dr. Berry is gonna play the video, and you're gonna try to understand the story using the modes that we have later in the previous experience with the vocabulary. And now we're gonna play the video and watch the video and see how is the interpretation.
Lemuel Gulliver was from Nottingham in England. He studied at Cambridge and then became apprenticed to a surgeon in London. Gulliver used his spare time to learn about navigation and mathematics. He believed that one day he would travel to far-off lands. Gulliver worked for 3 years as a ship's surgeon. He then returned to London, got married, and tried, without success, to work as a medic. Finally, he met Captain William Pritchard, master of the Antelope, and set sail for the South Seas. They left Bristol on the 4th of May, 1699. Far into the South Seas, their ship was overwhelmed by a violent storm. Many of the crew died. On November 5th, the ship was blown onto some rocks and was doomed. Gulliver tried to escape in a lifeboat, but the boat was inundated and sank. Gulliver had the choice to swim or to die. He swam until he was exhausted and his feet dropped. He could feel the sand below, so he knew he was close to land, and he managed to walk to safety. Gulliver had arrived in the land he would come to know as Lilliput. He could see no sign of either houses or inhabitants. Weak from exhaustion, Gulliver lay down and fell into a deep sleep, not waking before it was daylight. When Gulliver awoke, he realized that he had been strongly fastened to the ground. His captors, known as Lilliputians, were human-like creatures no more than a few inches tall. They provided him with food and drink, which was laced with a sleeping potion. He slept all through the following night. While Gulliver slept, his captors placed him onto a carriage and took him to a disused temple near their capital city. The carriage was drawn by hundreds of the local inhabitants. At the disused temple, Gulliver was inspected by the emperor and his senior officers. Thousands of the local inhabitants came to marvel at him. Gulliver was chained to the temple, and the ropes that bound him were cut. Now he could move a little and lie down in the shelter of the old temple. Gulliver entertained the court in many ways and gradually gained the confidence of the emperor. On one occasion, he stood like a colossus while the emperor's armies marched through his legs with drums beating and colors flying. Gulliver was finally granted his liberty and had his chains removed permanently. He was given a daily allowance of meat and drink sufficient to support 1,724 Lilliputians. Every village in the kingdom helped to supply the sustenance that Gulliver needed. The emperor allowed Gulliver to visit the capital city of Mildendo. Gulliver took great care not to damage any of the people or the buildings. The empress herself took time to greet Gulliver at the window of her apartment in the center of the royal palace. The emperor's principal secretary told Gulliver that the empire needed his help. The kingdom of Lilliput faced the threat of an invasion from the neighboring kingdom of Blefuscu. The Blefuscudians had equipped a large fleet of ships, and Lilliput would soon be attacked. Gulliver pledged that he was ready to defend with his life the emperor and his state. To prevent the invasion by the armies of Blefuscu, Gulliver was determined to capture their fleet. He planned to tie together their greatest warships and tow them back to Lilliput. He equipped himself with ropes and set off across the channel to where their fleet was gathered. When they saw him, the Blefuscudians were so frightened that they leapt out of their ships and swam for their lives. The whole fleet was left undefended but for the archers who were on the shore, along with more than 30,000 of their countrymen. The archers discharged several thousand arrows at Gulliver in great volleys, and he was struck many times in the hands and face. In spite of this vicious assault, he managed to fasten together 50 of their finest ships, which he cut from their anchors and took back to Lilliput. Upon arriving at the royal port of Lilliput, Gulliver presented the captured ships to the emperor. When the Blefuscudians saw their finest ships being taken to Lilliput, they were left in a state of grief and despair. The Blefuscudians sued for peace, and the war ended. Some of the emperor's advisors were jealous of Gulliver, They wanted to kill him or blind him, but one of the emperor's courtiers warned Gulliver, and he escaped to Blefuscu and was welcomed there by their king. Gulliver noticed an upturned boat off the shore of Blefuscu and persuaded the king to help him salvage this boat. Because Gulliver's actions had averted a major war, the king agreed to his request and ordered that Gulliver should receive all the help and materials he needed to fit up this boat into good repair. After about 1 month, the repairs to the boat were complete. The king allowed Gulliver to take all the provisions that he could carry. When the boat was fully stocked, Gulliver was ready to sail. The royal court gathered to see Gulliver off amid great ceremony. Gulliver set sail on the 24th day of September in the year 1701. Gulliver sailed north and was eventually spotted by one of the crew of a merchant ship. He was welcomed on board by her captain, Mr. John Bedell, a very civil man and an excellent sailor who agreed to take Gulliver home to England.
There we go. Another way to send the message of the story to children or to teenagers, right? And I would like to that we have like a little discuss of what you notice, right? Because for example, in the first multimodal storytelling, because those both are multimodal storytelling. In the first one, I was telling you the story. Yes, you were interrupting. In this one, with the video, also we can do the interactions. We also can stop the video and you can read some parts of the story, or you can also participate according to the parts that you have to reinforce the vocabulary. Because maybe it happens, it happens truly happens, that there are some students that say, teacher, yo no entendí esa parte. So you have to go back to the video and try to help them to understand what are they saying. But maybe using your own words, or maybe using pictures in Google, or maybe you can show sounds using also Google or school supplies that you have around you, right? So please, next slide. And I would like that you talk. This is a time for having like a deeper comprehension of this strategy. And I would like that you start telling me what most can you identify during this experience. What most you identify in the experience. So please tell me, I want to hear you. Is everybody quiet? No, that's what I don't. I don't want that part. I want that you tell me. Remember that we were talking about modes that can be colors, gestures, those semiotic resources that we use to send the message, right? And we were using multimodal storytelling. That it means that it's telling a story using modes. So tell me what modes you identify.
Sure.
Tell me, John.
Maybe the images or the sounds of the songs in the background. Maybe those are modes that help us to understand in a better way the story.
It's very point, John. So the pictures that you show at the beginning or during the story, it help you to understand the story. Also, the colors that you use in maybe your drawings were part of comprehension. Very nice. What other thing did you notice?
Well,
No.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, in the first way that you tell us the story, you use a lot of expressions, a lot of gestures in your face that can understand the story in a better way. So it was very useful.
Yeah, so the gestures that I did was part of the message. They also were part of the message. Very nice. Something else, what about the first version when telling the story? That is one way of multiple storytelling. And the second way, when you have the video there. What do you notice?
Teacher, for example, in the video, they use like pictures of the most emotional parts of the story. So this way we can, or the kids or students, everybody can understand which points of the story are like the most important and where the story changes the course, and that's it.
Very nice, Juan Andres. You say something really important, and it's that details in the story, the special part of the story, and those special parts, you as teachers know when to show them to your students or when just to generalize the story, and what it depends of that. What do you think?
Maybe
When you say, tell me.
I don't know, sorry, teacher.
No, yes, I was just replanting the question, but it's the same one. When are you going to use maybe the first version that it was something generalized and the second that is deeper, that is detailed? Will you use it in a particular way, a classroom, or in a particular group, or what could be for you?
Maybe, for example, we could use the detailed story when we are teaching or working with a student level of primary school, high school, when they learn mostly through the concrete objects or related with their experience. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, but very nice point, John, because let me tell you that at the beginning I say, maybe this works better with maybe 11th grade because there are more details, or maybe I can use this one with 6th grade because they are like a little bit. And let me tell you that that's incorrect. You can use both ways with the same level of English or with a higher level of English. You can use it in whatever classroom. The only thing that you need to take into account is the modes that you're going to use, and also how are you going to support as teacher your students. But it doesn't matter. It can be primary, it can be preschool. Also with preschool, you can work so many details in the story, but the only thing that works, that during my research, I consider the work is the use of modes. You can send the message, and if you use a mode that helps to understand the listener, the part of what you want that he or she understands, is the most important thing. You can use the video, or you can use your voice. You can use a very long story or detailed part of the story or a generalized way. The most important thing is the most that you use. For example, if you notice, when I was telling you the story, I was including gestures and I was showing you some objects, right? And the story was summarized. In the second, during the video, they had more details, but the modes that appear there was the narrator, right? The voice of the narrator and the images. But in that part, you do not have the support of something to touch, or maybe something that you can smell, because that's another important thing. You also can involve things or that your student can smell, and the comprehension is going to be easier too. But the idea is that as teachers, you have to be very smart to identify what modes use for the understanding, for the comprehension, right? So in the video, you didn't have movements, you didn't have gestures, you didn't have the objects, and you were like in a very relaxed way. But I certainly know that there were parts of the story that maybe you were like, I didn't know the meaning of the word. What is that mode? I know I didn't understand the whole part of the message of that part. So when it happens, you have to go back to the video, and you, maybe as teacher, have to help your student to understand, but it's not maybe you, the principal, the responsible to do it. Maybe you can ask you also the other student, the classmates, for helping with that comprehension, right? So until that part, very nice. I really enjoyed to share with you that part. So you identify modes. You at this moment can realize that story reading or story time can be enjoyed in a very different way, maybe going beyond of the use of the big books and the beautiful picture books. But yeah, in all the schools, we do not have an English library section, because that's another thing that's for real. In the public schools education, we do not have that kind of material. Now we're trying to get in access to some libraries online, but guess what? Students don't like reading in Spanish, so sometimes for them it's so complicated to say that they are going to read in English. But the idea is that if you transmit there, or if you invite them in a different way to enjoy story reading or reading time, as whatever your school calls it, because there are different ways, we have different names for that. As you invite them to read, to write, is the way they are going to love using those things. And those things are also part of the understanding of the teacher of what literacy is. Because if you are the kind of teacher that understands literacy, or just read and write as separated, and you ask them, hey, for tomorrow, write a story about parts of the house. Can you imagine that part? The student being stressful for that request, for that task, they are not going to enjoy it. But if you present them the possibility to use modes also for writing, and they realize that there are also modes for reading, and it's the same thing, they are correlated, they're gonna be very joyful for them, and we are gonna talk about meaningful learning, right? So, question until this part. Some question until this part, or we go to the second part of this demo. Strategies that I use to involve also self-confidence into my classroom. As I told you before, with multimodal storytelling, the idea is to make students feel they can understand, because they do, they understand. But you have to make them believe in that. They sometimes used to say, no, teacher, es que el inglés a mí no me gusta. Profe, yo no entiendo nada, no me hable así que yo no entiendo nada. Those are the kind of sentences that are really common, but the idea is to transform those sentences. And how you transform them? When you help them to believe in themselves, to stimulate self-confidence, and they see, oh my God, I understand that reading. Oh my God, the teacher ask a question and I know the answer. So if I say, for example, with multimodal storytelling, who are the characters of the stories? And they immediately can say Gulliver, and also maybe they forgot the name of the Lilliputians, and maybe if I have the element in the classroom, they can make this. Teacher, this, and you help them. Ah, the Lilliputians. Okay, Lilliputians, and they repeat, and they learn the word. But it doesn't mean that they don't understand, because that's something different. The idea is that we take into account that we do understand languages, we do understand those stories. Maybe the problem is to express it verbally, but it doesn't mean that you don't know. So take into account that part. So let's go to the second part of this demo. And for this demo also, I need your participation. I need your notebook, right? And this is challenge time. I'm gonna tell you what I understand for challenge time. That's something that I think like 2 years ago. And challenge time is a group of activities oriented to promote self-confidence and learn the use of tools for language learning, as the dictionary, the English notebook, websites, and even classmates help. So listen what I'm saying. A group of activities oriented to promote self-confidence and learn the use of tools for language learning, because that's another thing that happens in the English classroom. Sometimes students don't know how to use the tools. Teacher, ¿y cómo se busca en este diccionario? Teacher, I'm gonna type it in Google Translator and say, please stop. No Google Translator, but you have to guide them to use online dictionaries if they have the access using cell phones, or if they have, for example, in my case that I have a bilingualism room that is like a room with computers, or lab. Also sometimes they call it English lab, and they have the computers and they can use them for learning English, right? But sometimes the answers are also, or maybe the answers or the explanations are in the English notebook and they don't know how to use them, right? So that's also important. So I create those activities to play with those two things, right? And this strategy is used to activate prior knowledge, and I used to be a warm-up activity. So what I'm going to teach you, or what I'm going to show you, is that this activity is something that you can do at the beginning of your English classes, like a warm-up activity. And it helps your students to look for different options to solve or complete the challenge. At the same time, the process became the most important part of the activity. It's not the result of the challenge, it's the process for completing the challenge, what is the most important thing here. So here we have a very easy example of a challenge time that I do with my students. And we're gonna do it here right now. In 3 minutes, be careful with this. 3 minutes, you're gonna select and write as many positive affirmations as you understand. So 3 minutes, go, go, go. I need that you work on this. Go to write the positive affirmation that are up to you, that maybe you like it, or maybe you understand. Because that's the other important thing that I do with my students. I ask them that to look if they understand the affirmations. But teacher, that's too simple. So try using something that they can do according to the English level that you can notice, something more challenging, because maybe the English level or the grade. So here we have another example. You notice that in the previous one, they were so simple. Now they are completed. Let's continue, and it's top in the 25. 25. So those are the ones that I use, for example, with my students of 11th grade. And you know something, when you show them those sentences, you can identify many things with them. The emotional conditions of their students, or the thing that I like the most as an English teacher, is that they say, "Ay, teacher, I understand many." Teacher, uy, in words of them, qué máquina, yo hice como 20. Those are the sentences or the phrases that as a teacher give you an idea that they are understanding, they are learning English, and they are having like the sensation, the feeling that English is something that can be easy. That English is something that is related to them, to the emotional part of them. The purpose of those activities is to make them feel they can do it. They can complete the challenge. So I'm gonna show you some others. Another version of those challenge time. And you're gonna look at them. And the time for executing them is short. The idea is that it's not gonna take the whole English class. Because the idea is just like at the beginning of the class, they have the feeling that English is easy. Well, I feel comfortable. I understand the challenge. I complete it. And they are able to use their tools. And their tools are the English notebook, the dictionary, and things like that. Because remember, the idea is like giving them the feeling they can do it. But let's go to something more challenging. For example, with the elders, you are not gonna maybe ask them to write. For example, in 6th grade, I asked my students to write. I remember the first day of English classes, I asked them to write all the English words they know during 10 minutes. And they were writing like oh, teacher, that word's in English. Oh, and they were writing and writing and writing a lot of things, and they feel comfortable, right? But that kind of activity, I cannot do it maybe with the elders. The elders, they have maybe more vocabulary, so I used to do it with something related to the curriculum. That's another important thing to take into account. You had to do all the activities related to the curriculum. So in that time, I gave them the vocabulary list for Prueba Saber. The Prueba Saber, we know that they are related to the cat, that is the English task, or the key English test, and I extract the vocabulary from there, and I give them the paper, the prints with that vocabulary. And let me tell you that there are like 10, 15, I think that 15 pages. It's a list of words of 15 pages. When you see that vocabulary, you can imagine that's too much. Teacher, ¿cuándo nos vamos a aprender todo esto, por Dios? It could be their expression. But I ask them in also 10 or 15 minutes to use the vocabulary list and highlight the words they know, right? It's not challengeful. It's something that they can do, and they were reading all the English word and say, ah, yes, I know this word, I know this one, I know this one. And they were highlighting the words they know. And the second part of the activity was select 30 words that catch their attention and look for their meaning. This is a warm-up activity. This is not the whole class. That's another thing that you have to keep in mind. It's not the whole class. It's just for warming them up, right? Another samples of challenge. Let's see them. Ideas for challenges could be make a list of words you know in English in 10 minutes. And you can give them a concrete or a specific topic. Okay, in this time we were talking about nature because it's the part of the English program at this moment. Okay, we were talking about nature. So ask them to make a list of words related to nature that they know in English in 10 minutes. Let them use the notebook. Let them use the vocabulary. It's not because of memory, because they are gonna feel that like they don't know. And your purpose is make them feel they can learn, right? So it's not that you make the list without tools. No, make the list and use the tools you have. And also a tool that you have is your classmate. So share vocabulary with your classmate. It can be helpful too. Write 5 sentences using she, he, it in 5 minutes. That's something that I use also with, for example, 8, 9 graders, because they're supposed to be already with simple present and the grammar part. So I just do it to make them feel they understand they can do it. Make a diagram with ways to say hello in English. I love this one. Or make a diagram with ways to say thank you in English. And they immediately go to use the computer, or go to use Google, go to use infographics to try to get the information. And that's a way that made them feel secure, self-confidence, and all the self-esteem. And so the learning is going to be relaxed and enjoyable for them. Another thing that I used to do in my classroom is use the Pictionary to write sentences in 5 minutes or whatever. But the point is the Pictionary. Sometimes you are going to face students that they do not have the resources, the economic resources to get a dictionary. And that's another thing that in English classes made them feel they cannot learn. What I did for avoiding that feeling in my public school, it was to print them a Pictionary. The Pictionary has 100 useful verbs in English, and they pasted in their English notebook. So they have something to use to learn English, and they are not gonna feel, ay, yo no tengo diccionario, profe, entonces por uno lo hago. Como yo no tengo diccionario. And then as a teacher you say, ask to a friend. But you imagine a group of 40 students and maybe just 5 students have English dictionary because sometimes that's a luxury for them. So you need to work on that. Okay, provide them the tools or simplify things to make them feel comfortable that they can learn. Right? Okay, so let's see what is next. Another more ideas for challenge. Here I have one. I did it with 9th and 10th grade, I think. Record a 1-minute video saying or naming objects, places around you. It was so funny because we were in the school and you had to record 1-minute video. So they were like a crazy going around and saying, teacher's lounge, bilingualism room, secretary, door, shelf, window. It was so funny. But it's a way that they can tell themselves they know English again. Look at the picture and write questions for a friend. Feel free to ask in a respectful way. That's another thing that I understand with my students is that sometimes you ask them, use WH question or WH explanation to write the questions. And they were, I don't understand what is where. I don't know, I forget what is why. So if you give them the tool and just invite them to be creative enough to write the question, it's simpler for them, right? So those are the ideas for challenges. I'm gonna share with you the second strategy that I use for stimulating self-confidence. Let's pass it the slide. And this is something that I call, I think that there was another before. Yeah, I know that one. Perfect. This strategy, I call it English Helps Me Grow. English Helps Me Grow is the strategy that I'm using now that we are in the quarantine, that we are working from our houses. And this strategy, I started using it because I was worried about the emotional situation of my students. As I tell you, this strategy arises at the beginning of the quarantine when teachers are demanding to create resources to study at home. And I say, to study English at home during this time? Really? Are they going to learn English at home by themselves? So I thought carefully in a way to help my students to connect with themselves. Avoid the pressure of learning English without face-to-face classes. And encourages students, this strategy, the idea is that encourages students to develop social, emotional skills at the time they are learning English language. So what I did, it was adding to the guide or the work that they had to do it at home, one exercise related to this, the emotional component. This is one of the samples. I can imagine my life without, and they have to make the diagram or a video or a multimodal composition as whatever they want, trying to complete that sentence. This is one of the examples that maybe you can look for, that you can find in Google. I didn't bring my students because I do not have the permission. I couldn't ask them for showing them up, so I didn't do it. But there were similar to this one, or even better. The ones that made the video, they were gorgeous. Another kind of activity related to English helps me grow is, next please, this one. And I really want that you look at this one carefully, because I grow the instruction in Spanish. It's called Inside My Heart. And it says that it says English helps me grow. That's the title of the exercise. And it continues with the explanation. Esta sesión está diseñada para que uses el inglés para tu crecimiento personal y puedas divertirte aprendiendo. Piensa en las personas, lugares, cosas, situaciones, gustos, actividades o recuerdos que ocupen un lugar en tu corazón. Llena las fichas del rompecabezas con dibujos, palabras o frases en inglés que los representen. Que esta sea una excusa para aprender vocabulario nuevo o para que mejores tus oraciones en inglés. La escritura de tus oraciones en inglés. This activity or this exercise, I did it with 9th grade. And let me tell you that I found some works that I was like, I want to cry, because they really take the time to develop this exercise. They involve colors, markers, pictures, drawings. And when you look at the work of your students, you immediately read or detect like the passion that they put into their works. And this exercise, it was completely different to the other ones. I mean, to the other English exercises that I know they did it because it was part of the process. But I detect that this kind of exercises let them like connect with the English learning in a really natural way, right? So take into account that emotional component during your English classes, because the results are going to be amazing. I found vocabulary in those hard puzzles that I was like, oh my God, they were using that word. Nice. I mean, they were using vocabulary in a higher level. So that's something really nice to tell them, discover that part. Or using English, the sentences, they were writing sentences with a really nice structure. They were long. I mean, they use a very nice complement. So that's something that you can detect with a simple and easy activity as this one, right? Let's continue to the next slide. And this is another one that I use it for 6th graders as part of the strategy English Helps Me Grow. And pay attention to the same thing. The 2 first questions, I grabbed them in English, but the last one, it was on purpose to write in Spanish. It has a purpose. So this story, I think that maybe you know it, is wonderful. I love it. It's okay to be different. It's a really simple story that shows situations when, as humans, we can be different, and the message is that that's different is okay. So the idea was that the great words, they know the meaning, so they have to go to the video, watch the video of the story, and if they found a word that they know in English, write it in the notebooks. Second, what is your favorite part of the story? And finally, ¿qué te hace diferente de los demás? ¿Cómo o en qué tus amigos son diferentes? ¿Qué discapacidades conoces? ¿Cómo podrías ayudar a alguien que tenga una discapacidad? And I did this because we have that situation in one of those sixth grade groups. So I want to start involving that component or disabilities, or no, just I don't like to call it that way. Just we're different, that's it. So it was a very nice opportunity from the English classroom, from the English class, to start talking about those topics. That is like a way to stimulate that part, not just the vocabulary, but to stimulate them in the way that they can respect and accept the difference, right? And it was a very, very, very nice opportunity to share with them, talking about this story is okay to be different. And finally, let's see what is the last thing here. The third and the last strategy I would like to share with you is thinking outside the box. I love this activity because let me tell you that there is a big difference with 6 and 11 graders and primary level using this one. If you take this activity primary to preschool, oh my God, they are gonna enjoy it a lot. You had to complete a picture, but you had to tell them what is not, because immediately your brain takes you to think in a specific object. And the idea is that we can use our brain to go beyond of that. And what is the relationship with English? So the relationship with English is that after doing the drawing, I ask them to write the word in English or to write the sentence about the object in English, or I ask them, for example, okay, the thing that you did, write a sentence related to the drawing in simple past. If I'm working with simple past or reinforcing something like that. Or please write it in present perfect. Or please in simple future. And that's a way to help them to being connected with different things, but you are not just emphasizing on the grammar component, right? You are just making the exercise, but it's not the most important part of the class. And finally, or another way that I can use this for is write a short story using the sentences as the title. I can play with the result of this activity, but the idea is to help them to think in a very different way. And let me tell you that for the elders, this activity sometimes is hard for them. It's unbelievable that when you're getting older in the school system, they were expected to teachers say exactly what they have to do. And when the first time that I give them this instruction, complete the picture is not a fish, they were like, ¿qué hay que hacer? No entiendo. No, profe, ¿y qué? Pero si eso no es un pez, entonces, ¿qué es? Pues eso es un pez. No, try again. Think in a different way. So that's also an invitation for you, my dear undergrad students, my dear pre-service teachers, that you help them to think outside the box, right? So with this strategy, I finished this component here. I finished my demo. and I would like to share, I would like to hear questions, doubts, comments about this. Yeah, remember my name, Monica. So feel free to ask me whatever that it comes to your mind. I mean, in an academic way, of course.
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you so much, Monica, for this incredible presentation. It's always really nice to see how your research keeps growing as you kind of take it back to the class, and how you keep finding new ways to play with that concept. I really appreciate
I can
it.
make it a bridge.
Yeah, no, and I really appreciate how you, I mean, as you go and as you keep thinking about what's next with your research, um, you you continue expanding the concept. So I'd say, for example, it's important how you showed us that multimodality needs to go beyond this idea that we're just making videos, and that making videos is one part of multimodality, but that multimodality is actually, it's a way in which you can you can really construct a curriculum that you can, that if you understand the meaning of multimodality and the idea of the integration of resources and the idea of playing with the different modes that are available in the class, you can develop an entire curriculum without needing or without having to resort to using technology all the time, or using computers, or using making videos, or using video cameras, but that you can actually rely on the resources and the ingenuity that exist already in the classrooms, that exist with the students. So I think, so I would like for you to tell us, because I think with this, we just kind of have to finish with that. But tell us a little bit more how, I mean, the evolution of your understanding of multimodality and how you have really been able to use it in your class.
Okay, perfect. Let me tell you that I had that mistakes at the beginning when I was trying to understand the multimodality. When I was exploring the theoretical component of multimodality, I found a lot of research related to multimodality in using computers. So I got also the growing idea that I use multimodality when I use a computer or when I present a video to my student, but that's wrong. Because if we say that multimodality is the use of modes, there are many modes, or including, and I don't know, remember the researcher, and he says that there are asemiotic modes. I don't know how the number in my mind. So we are talking about asemiotic modes. How do we reduce our practice just to using images and sound? Because that's a video. A video that you show your students is just images and sound. But there are other modes that can help you to give them meaning, or to send the meaning, to send the message and help them with the comprehension. So the idea is that you explore other modes, and that was what I did. I was trying to involve other modes that are really important, and we forget them. And particularly in preschool, I love to use modes that involve the senses, and that's part of my research. So I say that those modes that involve senses help them children to understand, because they can touch, they can eat, they can smell. It's just not about the sight and hearing. So it's really nice when you are telling me you are using multimodal storytelling and you are telling the story and you love them to play with the toy that is part of the message of the story, that you allow them to eat. That's something really meaningful. For example, if you are telling the story of the gingerbread man, and maybe they don't know ginger, or they can think that ginger is something completely different. But if you bring a real ginger to your class and let them smell, touch, or also eat, they are going to understand the meaning of the story. Or if you are telling, for example, this is a story that I presented at the beginning, but I realized that time was not enough. It is too noisy. It is too noisy is a story that sometimes is like a little difficult for preschoolers to understand what is noisy. Because talking, screaming, that's normal for them. That's normal in a preschool classroom. But what's really noise for them? But if you, for example, bring musical instruments and give to all your students, I mean, those toys, the musical instrumental toys, and they play them at the same time, and they experiment by their senses what is noisy, they are going to understand the message of the story that is about a house full of animals and people. So that's a perfect way to send the message of the story and to understand the message of the story. So that was like a devolution. Those ideas, I bring them to high school. And I made them enjoy story time in a different way because they were like a story time. They are gonna give us a photocopy for reading. And I say, no, we're gonna do it in a really different way. So when I start using multimodal storytelling, and I have groups of 35, 40 students per group, and you are telling them the story, I am in a moment that I am like, oh my God, I'm feeling alone in the classroom because they were attentive to the class, they were participating, they were behaving like a little children, paying attention because they are understanding English. That's another reason for I do what I do. It's because if I play the video, I know they are not going to understand some words of the story. And the idea is to enrich their vocabulary. And how to enrich their vocabulary? So making those interactions that we did at the beginning with multimodal storytelling, and everybody plays an important role during telling the story. So the other students that maybe do not have that vocabulary, they can look at the vocabulary, they can experiment the word, the meaning of the word, and they are gonna understand in a very simple and easy way. So that's what I got from now.
And that's really what the idea of multimodality should be. So I think on that note, and I encourage the students to contact Monica and ask her further questions about this. For everybody who asked, I remind you this video is on YouTube as part of the ongoing LSLP in session through some webinars. Thank you, Monica. Thank you so much for an incredibly engaging presentation. That it's nice for the students to see real school teachers doing real scholarship, doing real research that is moving to our classrooms and is impacting public education, because this is what we need to do. We need to show what real research looks like in schools and what real research done by real teachers looks like in practice. So with that, thank you so much, everybody, for being part of the demo. We'll have another one in 1 week, another researcher, another school teacher will come. Claudia Cañas is going to come and join us next Thursday to share her work with children's literacies. So on that note, thank you so much to everybody in class and everybody who watches this video. Once again, I encourage you to watch this one and all of the other LSLP in session webinars that we have. Thank you, good afternoon, and have a very good rest of the week.
Good afternoon, bye-bye.